Good morning, scholars. Happy Wednesday, hump day to you all. A few quick announcements before we get started. So today we'll finish the last part of what will be on your quiz coming up on Friday. Tomorrow will essentially be a work day for yourself. So there will be an assignment that will be posted to Google Classroom, but there won't be any new videos or anything of that nature tomorrow. So you'll use your old notes, old videos, etc. to complete the assignment and to study for your upcoming quiz. And I'll put all the quiz information up there probably sometime tomorrow morning. So with that, we're going to finish off section 6.4 by looking at the properties of a square. So we've done a parallelogram, which you can see all the properties associated with a parallelogram. We've done a rectangle. We took care of rectangles on Monday. And then yesterday, we took care of all the properties associated with a rhombus. So you have your parallelograms, rectangles, rhombuses. So now we delve into a square. Now we're basically looking at a square. So a square, this is about as simple as I can make it. A square pretty much has all the properties of a parallelogram, all the properties of a rectangle, and all the properties of a rhombus. So every property that we've learned, a square has it. Every property we've learned, a square has every single property. So everything in the kitchen sink, a square can do. So the main thing, additional part about it, is that a square breaks up into 4 identical isosceles right triangles. In other words, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 triangles inside of a square. All of them are right triangles. All of them are 45, 45, 90-degree triangles. All 4 of them. They're all identical to each other, too. So if you find one, you find them all. Simple as that. So with that being said, there's really nothing additional that needs to be explained with it except going through examples. So, of course, as you were growing up, you probably learned the 2 main things about a square. All the angles are right angles, and all the sides are the same. So you can keep using that because that's going to continuously help you. So example 1, we have BLAS as the square. So first thing, all 4 sides are the same. So it's 9 square root of 2 all the way around. All the angles are 90-degree angles. And if you look at angle B, angle L, angle S, and angle A, all of those angles are split in half. So it's 45, 45, 45, 45, 45, 45, 45, and 45. The only angles that don't get split in half are the 4 right angles that are inside the square. So those are the only ones that are not getting split in half. But other than that, now you can pretty much start solving out the problem. So BL is one of the 4 sides, so that's 9 square root of 2. TA is one of the diagonals. Remember, in a square, all the diagonals have to be congruent. So if one of them is 9, all of them are 9. SL, so you have S all the way to L. 9 plus 9, 18. angle BSA. So remember, the middle letter tells you where you're located. So BSA is this angle right there, and they're talking about the whole thing. So it's 90 degrees. BTL is talking about that angle right there, which you can see is 90 degrees. Angle LAT is talking about that sliver of an angle right there, and that's 45 degrees. For a square, it's pretty straightforward as far as the angles go. It's either a 45 degree or a 90 degree angle. You're really just working with those two numbers. So last two parts, for example, one, perimeter and area. So remember, since all the sides are congruent in a square, the perimeter is simply equal to 4 times one of the sides. So that's 4 times 9 square root of 2, which gives you 36 times the square root of 2. So just remember, 4 and 9 can be multiplied together. They're both outside the square root. That 2 is underneath the square root, so you can't touch it. Area of a square. So the area is side raised to the second power, or side times side, either way you want to look at it. So the side is 9 times the square root of 2. So that's 9 square root 2 times 9 square root of 2. So if we multiply them together, 9 times 9 is 81. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is the square root of 4. Square root of 4 is equal to 2. And 81 times 2 means that your area is 162. And that finishes up example number 1. So again, a lot of examples, a lot of parts of that one just to show you and highlight all the properties and all the things that you can do with the square. So that's example 1. Let's move into example 2. So again, when you're solving out examples with squares, don't feel as if you have to go in a particular order. You don't need to. Most of you know properties of squares, so as soon as you identify something, start solving it out. So for example 2, again, all the sides have to be the same. All the diagonals have to be the same. All the angles are right angles. And we know that each of these angles gets split in half. So there's 45s all the way around. So now let's go ahead and solve it. GK. So GK is equal to 2. All the sides of a square are equal. H all the way to K. So that's the square root of 2 plus the square root of 2. So that's equal to 2 square root of 2. So if you're a little confused about this, think of it this way. If you took x plus x, that's 2x. 1x plus 1x. 1 square root of 2 plus 1 square root of 2 would be 2 square root of 2. So it's not a hard concept, you just have to know how the numbers work. Angle KLJ, so remember, trace it, that's the easiest way to go about it. KLJ, that angle right there. That angle right there, 90 degrees. Pardon me for starting the drawing wrong. H, J, and then G would be this angle right there. That's 45 degrees. That's a 45-degree angle. Move down to perimeter. So perimeter is 4 times one of the sides. 4 times 2, 8. And the area is side raised to the second power or side times side. Either way it goes, that's 2 times 2, 4. So again, numbers wise, fairly simple to work with. All right, example 3. So now let's actually work with some variables. Work with some variables here. So we're looking for W, X, Y, and Z. So notice what they gave you in the problem. They gave you diagonals. So remember, all of these diagonals have to be equal to each other. They also gave you this angle, and look at where it's pointing. It's pointing to that little corner of the square. So that's important that you know where it's pointing to, because that way you know what number it gets. It's pointing to that little corner, which is a 45-degree corner. If it was talking about the whole thing, then you would be setting it equal to 90. So let's start with the W and get that out the way. So to find W, you would be taking W squared minus 4 and set it equal to 45. So that's our setup for the W. Now we're essentially just solving out the problem. Add 4 to both sides. You get W squared equals 49. Then you take the square root of both sides. W equals 7. So there's your first answer. Now, since the diagonals are congruent, all 4 of these parts are equal to each other. So before you get confused with what we should be setting equal to what, know that they gave you one part was 14. So since one of the parts is 14, all of the parts have to be 14. So every single one of these parts is 14. So that helps you set up the equations. So that means 7x has to equal 14. So that's simple enough. X equals 2. Z plus 6 equals 14. Z equals 8. And you have y squared minus 5y equals 14. So the reason why I save this one for last is because this one returns us to factoring. So it returns us to factoring. We haven't factored in a minute, so let's make sure we review it. Since we're factoring, the equation has to equal 0. Subtract 14 on both sides. Y squared minus 5y minus 14 equals 0. So now this turns into a MAF deal of a problem. So you're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to negative 14 and add to negative 5. The only 2 numbers that would work are negative 7 and positive 2. Negative 7 times 2 is negative 14. Negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5. So y minus 7 and y plus 2. Then all that's left at that point is to solve each individual equation. So one of your answers is y equals 7. and one of your answers is y equals -2. There's your 4 answers. That's it. There's your 4 answers. So as long as you know the properties, you can easily use them and solve whatever equations you may have. So last example that we'll do involving the square. So here we have square HEAR. Now look at what you have. You have 8x minus 3, 5z, and 9y squared, and all of them are pointing at angle parts of the angle. So 9y squared is sitting where the 4 90-degree boxes would go. 8x minus 3 is sitting where part of a 90-degree box would go. So that tells you it's not going to equal 90, it's going to equal 45. Same thing with the z. It's sitting where part of the 90-degree box would go. So again, drawing it and just taking a minute and not rushing through it actually will help you solve the problem. So your equations would end up being 8x minus 3 equals 45. 9y squared equals 90. And 5z equals 45. So now everything is set, ready to go, and really all we need to do now is solve out 3 equations. So let's go ahead and do that to finish off this problem. The x is easy. Add 3 to both sides. 8x equals 48. Divide by 8. X equals 6. For the y, 9y squared, you got to divide by 9. So y squared equals 10. Take the square root of both sides. So y equals the square root of 10. So you can leave it as the square root of 10 since it won't break down. Or in this case, you can give it as a decimal, 3.2. If you gave it 3.16, that's fine, since some of you are used to giving 2 decimal places. And for z, divide both sides by 5. Z equals 9. And just like that, problem's over. Problem is over. So at the end of the day, a square is really not all that difficult. Now that you've learned a rectangle and a rhombus, you're literally using the same properties with a square. And now that you've been using them for quite a while, solving them out is actually pretty easy at this point. So this wraps up section 6.4. Again, on tomorrow, part of your work will be reviewing the properties for a parallelogram, a rectangle, a rhombus, and a square, since those will be the things that will make up your quiz coming up on Friday. So again, you'll have a worksheet assignment, and then you'll have a Google mini quiz to complete. If you have questions, please make sure that you ask. Other than that, have a great Wednesday, and I'll talk to you soon.